Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Mitten Backstage. Thanks for joining us. So happy to have you join today for our conversation with guitarist Olin Clark. So I played with Olin a few times when he was living in Michigan. I met him through a lot of the Michigan State alumni crew. He's a, very great player, distinct sounds, has a distinct personality, I should say, on his instrument. That's really cool to listen to. He played in my group Blushing Monk, which you can hear those tunes on our latest album, Serendipity. He's not on the track that's currently playing, but he was on the album. And, we've done random gigs here and there, but he now lives in Brooklyn, and he has been there for a few years with some of his friends as roommates, and he has a new project called Pieces that will be dropping an album on September 17th. So after you're done checking this out, go check out all his socials, listen to some of his music, and get an idea for what's coming out soon. If you like today's conversation and you want to support these podcasting efforts, you can head on over to patreon.com/Tracy Snedeker. You can get early access to all the podcast episodes, exclusive merch mailed out in a newsletter, and more. And like I keep saying, pay attention to September 10. That is my birthday, and I'm going to be launching a few things, mainly updates and tweaks to, all the stuff that comes with learning how to present oneself on the internet, but also just some fun updates. So keep an eye out for that. Another way to support this podcast is to share it with your friends, whether it's, the audio version or the video version on my YouTube page. That is a huge help. Sharing is caring, quite literally. It shows the algorithm that you're engaged with content, and it helps kick it out to more people who might not be in your direct line of friend groups. You can also subscribe, follow, like, all the things that show your various levels of support online. It's easy to do and it helps a lot. So I appreciate those two. All right, let's get into today's episode with Olin Clark. Oh, you have a Rode. Okay. It was a similar looking pop filter. I bought this the Wave 3 from Elgato. So it's just a USB-C mic that isn't too bad for a lot of stuff, and it's got some internal like if I were to stream with it, it's got I could mix what is being sent to the stream versus what I hear, and then just make new channels for whatever source. So that's pretty sweet.
Cool. I haven't explored this that far, but I like the USB aspect. I don't have to use my interface, which I use on my PC.
Oh, right.
Or my desktop.
Yep.
But yeah, man.
Yeah. So where are you? I feel like I knew where you moved to, but I don't know if you're still there. Or...
I'm in Brooklyn, or technically Ridgewood, but which is right on the border of Brooklyn, but it's basically Bushwick in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've lived here. I've lived in Bushwick since I moved here, actually, in just some different apartments. But yeah, in Brooklyn.
Nice. And it's like Brooklyn feels like one of those, it's both like an artist hub, but I've heard gentrification comes for us all, so I don't know if it's still got that vibe underneath, or if it's it's moving out of the area. I don't know how New York works, because there's so many different little neighborhoods.
Yeah, well, the thing is, New York is it's huge. I mean Brooklyn, even though it's kind of not that big, I guess. I was talking to a friend last night who used to work at this place called Bar Bayou, which is in Flatbush, or not nowhere near me, basically, Crown Heights. And it was he's like, I was like, I haven't been there in a while. He's like, oh man, you gotta go. But I was like, it's so far from me, even though it's a couple miles. He's like, oh yeah, man, just crash on your friend's couch, and then go to this other place nearby, which I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. But then I was thinking about it, I was like, man, this place is 5 miles away, but it's you have to crash on a friend's couch if you go 5 miles away, sometimes in Brooklyn. But there are so many little different, ecosystems and areas, and some are definitely more gentrified. like Williamsburg. But
Oh, okay, yeah,
it's you can't. It's pretty much impossible to talk about Brooklyn as a whole, just because there's so many people here and so many different neighborhoods and vibes.
yeah. That's why I feel like being in Michigan and growing up in Michigan and just hearing about coastal cities, like it's hard to fathom like like a Grand Rapids, it's like it's a big small town. You can see a lot of people, but you also don't know most of the people that live in the city. Um, and then you have like New York, where it's been a destination for generations of families, and it's just got these own micro communities within communities. Like, yeah, it's probably hard to
Hmm.
just say like, yeah, Brooklyn, it's these five things. It's
Right, right. It's but it's great, man. I mean, I like
yeah,
Brooklyn. I've never lived in Manhattan, but and spent plenty of time there. Um, but I like the Brooklyn scene. It's definitely different as far as kind of the music. People, it's just kind of there's a little different vibe. People talk about the Brooklyn music scene as opposed to like Manhattan or whatever. Um, and yeah, Brooklyn, Brooklyn baby.
all the way. Yeah, I've been seeing clips here and there of you're playing, I'm sure, pretty often. And do you teach also in the city, or is it just mainly performing work? Or
No, I do teach too. I teach at a school in Manhattan called NYC Guitar School. So yeah, I teach there like right now 2 days a week, and then I'm still like doing virtual lessons another day a week. Yesterday, um, and then yeah, playing gigs and stuff uh, on the weekends and whenever else. But yeah, I mean, mostly lately it's just been weddings, like you said. I'm still kind of yeah, finding more and more gigs, like performance, not weddings or not like not like hotel like lobby gigs or restaurant gigs or whatever. Like,
yep.
um, but yeah, teaching a couple days a week, playing gigs, trying to record, trying to do some stuff like that. I taught myself Ableton.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
I've been trying to get into that bag lately, which is like a whole world, man. I'm not very good at it. I've been doing it for like a year, and I know that I'm like, man, I'm so bad at this.
That's how I feel with Pro Tools. I subscribed thinking like, oh, okay, if I don't, if I'm not digging it or if it's not flowing, I'll just cancel it. But they lock you in for a year. So I
Mm.
spent a year, not really doing, like, I feel like I need to up the game a little bit in terms of like, I've like, oh, I'm recording audio, I'm tracking MIDI keys, like things that are, not too hard to do by myself. But
Right.
I feel like I need like that little push of like, well, let's try, like, how do you make a click track map and change all the tempos, and how do you use, I don't know, track even just basic, like, oh, let's basic tracking guitar, bass, like, oh, I have
Uh-huh.
amp sims, let's try those. Oh, I have program drums, let's try it. There's so much gear that's just in a
Yeah.
computer.
It's insane, man. How deep it goes.
Yeah.
Um,
Have you just been making like, I guess I've seen some of the Instagram posts. You've been making like just things with guitar and a bunch of beats and electronics and stuff, or is it?
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Just kind of short things, or I'll try to recreate. And just kind of like trying to learn it. Just try to recreate something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I guess on my Instagram, I posted this like "Between the Buried and Me" intro
Oh yeah.
song, "Aesthetic," which is a badass intro and song in general. But it's like they tuned to C standard or something, or like drop C. I don't remember. And I didn't want to do that, so I just like tried to recreate it, and just like I think I tuned it to drop D anyway, or maybe it was just E standard. But I'm just trying to like emulate the sound of the drums and the guitar, it's like really hard, to to get it to sound like something else. And I'm just
Yeah.
doing it here in my apartment. I don't have
Right.
like a professional setup really.
Yeah. Well, and I think that a lot of people realized last year that that was possible for where they, everyone thinks like, oh, I need to get soundproofing, I need to get this. But really, if you have like decent mixing headphones and like, you get you can start somewhere. You don't need to like, I don't know, buy
Right.
rent out a studio every time you want to record a 10-second idea or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And I did so I'm like releasing this album I sent to you, right? 1A
Yes.
Pieces, which is like collaborative trio um that I play with. And so we recorded the album last year, and we just like laid down bass, drums, and guitar, not too much overdubbing or anything in the studio. And then I recorded some more stuff from home, and put it on the album, like just some kind of overdub guitar, rhythm guitar, I guess, and had some like a MIDI keyboard. Lex Corton, great pianist and friend of mine, just came over to my apartment and like played some great MIDI keyboard. And it sounds great, sounds
Yeah.
legit.
And yeah, I've noticed that with I got Keyscape a couple years ago, and every time I use Keyscape, it's like, you know, you hear the attention to like all the nerdy details of like, oh, you could crank up, like the mechanical noise on a Rhodes if you
Mm-hmm.
really wanted to, or you can, detune a grand piano. Like there's just random stuff that's like, yeah, this is better than, trying to prepare a physical instrument a certain way.
Right. And I actually sent like the MIDI stuff because we recorded like organ, kind of like a Rhodes sound, and then just acoustic piano, were the sounds that we tracked or we're going for,
Yeah.
and recorded all that stuff, and I sent it to Kim V. You ever meet Kim? He went to Michigan State.
Yeah,
Great pianist.
I don't think I met him before he moved, but I knew he didn't he used to play with Benjamin James.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I had heard about him when I was in the band for that couple years, but I never met him.
Yeah. Another really great friend of mine, and great pianist and musician in general. He lives in LA.
Okay.
He's lived there for a while. Um, but he's a kind of a wizard with MIDI, a MIDI wizard. So we sent him all this stuff, right? And we're like, make this organ sound like an organ, and this piano sound like a piano, and he did it, man. I don't know what he did, but
Wow.
sculpting the organ like drawbars, and putting some kind of effects on the Rhodes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still like in terms of drawbars, like figuring out, what to do with organ on our last single with Earth Radio that we put out this past May. There's I play the organ, I overdubbed organ in the song, and during my solo, I don't know if you ever met David Ward at all. He might have
Mm-mm.
been just coming in when you were leaving. He it's so funny. He was a recommendation from Travis Swanson when we were like trying to have a drummer in the back pocket because Madison's going to be moving to Nashville
Right,
soon, and
right.
uh, David, great dude, perfect fit for the personality of the band, and great, compliment to Madison's drumming on percussion, but also a great drummer. And he, you know, he worked, or the first time he was in the studio with us was for that single, and he worked the drawbars as I was playing because he knew how to do them better. I was like, all right, just go ahead.
Yeah. I'll keep my hands here.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll just
You do all
keep
this.
you don't really know what I'm playing, but here I don't even know what I'm gonna play. Here we go.
That's funny, man. It's like a duet.
Yeah. It's kind of like, like classical pianists having page turners. It's like you need a good page turner for certain pieces, otherwise it's over.
Yeah,
So
really,
as soon as
really.
they turn 3 pages ahead, and oh no, and then
Oh, that's it, man. You're fired.
yeah, I'll do it myself. But yeah, and you, so with the recording process, was it tricky? I'm assuming it was tricky with, quarantining and COVID and all the things, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe you had a way in that was easier to work through.
No, it was. I mean, we did have um, some like logistical issues. That's kind of why we did like the home recording for a piano and the other overdubs and things that we did. It's because the studio had like a limit on how many people they wanted to come in at a time, and so yeah, it was just the trio. And fortunately, and this is kind of something that set their my minds at ease, is that this whole band pieces kind of came to be because we were roommates. Um,
Hmm.
Adam Adam Ray, the drummer, and Louis Leaguer, who's been. Do you know Louis? You probably met Louis somewhere. He's a bass player.
Yeah, somewhere along. I've always remember the name. I can't remember where, when, or if I've met him, but I've heard about him a lot.
Right, right, yeah. Well, I've lived with Louis. Louis and I have been roommates for like man, uh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 8 years. We were
Whoa.
roommates, so long time. He's my brother. But Louis and Adam and I were all roommates at my last apartment, and over the quarantine, and even before, like we played in other bands together, but especially like over the quarantine over 2020, we didn't have any gigs, obviously, and but we were so lucky that we just had like a built-in trio that we could play whenever we wanted, basically. Um, and that's where we kind of put the book together, the songs, and it didn't really start out like we're gonna record an album. Um, so we got to practice these songs. It was just like, yo, what are you doing? It's 2 o'clock on a Wednesday. It's like, fucking nothing, man. What do you
Yeah.
think I'm doing? You trying to play the song? Um, right. So, and then from there, we started doing like live streams, kind of usually bi-weekly. We had a couple. Called this the Quarren Trio, of course. That was probably one of a million Quarren Trio
Yeah.
that ever happened.
There was a pizza place that opened in GR called Quarantinos.
Quarantinos, Quarantinos. I saw that, man. I was there last. Shoot, when was I there? June? No, June? Maybe
May,
June. I was just there
yeah.
for like a week to visit my family.
Okay.
And we went. It's in Easttown, right? Or kind of downtown.
Yeah. Yep.
In Easttown, yeah, yeah, yeah. We went to Easttown because my little sister lives there, and we were riding the little scooters around, limes. That was
Yep.
fun, man. That was my first time on a lime, or whatever they're called. And
Great.
we rode by it, and I was like, Quarantinos? Is it
Yeah.
good? Is it good pizza?
I've been meaning to try it. I've last year I felt like I defaulted to a lot of the same places for like, oh, okay, like, this delivery or this pizza spot or this. So now I'm like, okay, I'm sick of all those places. Let's let's make a list of like, oh, try this, next time I'm feeling pizza. So I think Quarantinos is overdue to try.
This episode brought to you by Quarantino's Pizza.
Yeah, proud sponsor of this podcast.
Hey, if you say it enough times, maybe you will get sponsored by Quarantino's. You
Yeah.
just have to like manifest pizza,
Yeah, to
like
manifest
manifest
pizza.
destiny, but manifest pizza.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I've been hearing that word a lot this year, manifesting, because I feel like everyone had some version of like this thing that's out of my control is affecting everything. So now that there's a little bit more, oh, you get vaccinated, you get, these things set up, all, you can
Hmm.
start doing things again. At least until, probably this fall. I've had 3 things canceled already, but fingers crossed. It feels like a lot of this year is like, okay, if I didn't do a ton last year, like let's start doing things again. If I had something in the works, let's get things published. If I, didn't even touch my instrument, now I'm playing it. Like it's everyone's making these intentional choices to be like, you know what, I need to go back to that thing that is fun and like meaningful, and make that decision to like invest time and energy into it, even as we're all still figuring out things and wondering how far ahead we can schedule as musicians and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, you're so right. I mean, it's so cloudy. Everybody wants to have a vision, right? Of what they're going to do, what they're going to release, what gigs they're going to play. But it's like so hard to see right now because we can't control anything. So, right, I think that's where like the manifestation comes in, is because you can do that, right? It's something you can do for sure, is take care of yourself or pay more attention to what you want and things like that. So I think it's great,
Yeah, it's definitely it's a word that like sometimes you hear it from, like a Goop, like Gwyneth Paltrow's lifestyle brand, where it's like just manifest this $300 recycled wood crate for your bike. And then other times it's like, a genuine like, oh, they really, they didn't just sit there and go like, it's going to happen. It's like they had a goal and they worked towards it, and in a more practical manifesting.
Manifest again.
Yeah. But
it is kind of like a buzzword, one of those words that just kind of comes out of nowhere, and then it's like, God, now I have to think about that word and say it.
Yeah, now I am totally. I feel like that's a lot of media is like that too, where they latch onto a term or a word, and then one side spins it one way, the other side counters that spin, and then we're all just like, I don't really know what it means, but I didn't literally think about it until this year.
You get caught using a word you don't really know what it means. Like, what does that word mean? It's like, well,
it's the way it means. Anyway, let's. Yeah, and I think it's good overall that like most of the people who I've heard use it are people who really have taken steps or goals to, even if it's small. Like some people were like, oh, I just want to, well, it's probably an undertaking, but I want to make a home garden. And it's like, okay, they bought the dirt, they found people to help build it, they planted the seeds, they Googled all the things they need to know about plants, and now they have cucumbers, or and it's like even that small idea of like, oh, I'm gonna start a garden, suddenly you're learning more stuff, you feel I don't know, more empowered as like oh, I can take care of myself even beyond just being shopping or something. Like I can grow my own food.
What a concept.
Yeah, I was considering it last year, but really it was I'd have to do a lot of work on the backyard. It's just I'm hoping that with the winter it just kills off the weeds and things that have grown, and then I can just like scorch the earth and start over.
Yeah. Just light fire to it, just a controlled burn.
Yeah. Don't mind the very flammable looking garage and the wooden fence. Like those will all be fine.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I'll just spray them with the hose.
Yeah. Mind your own business, all right?
Yeah. This is my life.
Yeah, it's my backyard.
Yeah.
I'll burn it if I want.
Yeah. Well, and actually I just had the thought of when you were saying earlier about the trio kind of formed out that you were doing, out of your friendships and living with Louis for so long. I think about the trio normal mode that I'm playing in. It's me and my I don't know if you ever met Ian Thompson
Mm-hmm.
or okay, and Nathan Coles on drums.
Okay.
Um, and that was, we started getting together partially as friend. Well, we were friends, but part of the reason we started is because we were friends and just had some pickup gigs. And then it turned into, Ian started writing some tunes and needed people to record. And then after that, process of recording the first album we put out, not under the band's name, it was just under Ian's name, research and development. It was just like
Mm-hmm.
fun to see, like, oh, we all kind of have like a collective idea for what we want to do with, like lo-fi but beats, but
Right.
that jazz like acoustic electric trio vibe, and space. And now, we've been working on this record we're putting out pretty soon. I can't remember the official release date, but it's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's exciting.
yeah, and it feels really good to like that was an album we tracked during quarantine, and we happened to be friends with Greg Baxter, who works a studio he calls Second Story Sound. It's in the second floor of his house, and he built it out where there's a control room and then a separate live room and like one ISO booth. And
Okay.
we were able to track in the same room, have the bass amp in the control room and the drums just out in the rest of the space. And
Right.
but yeah, it started as we're building rep, and then once you get past oh, do you know Caravan, it's like, okay, it's like that's fun, but let's find some
Right.
other stuff. And now we're really leaning towards we have these original tunes, let's find other stuff to complement them and complement how the band performs stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been fun to see that kind of take shape from just goofing around on background gigs to we all have a shared idea of how we want to perform certain things, and even challenge ourselves too. We have rehearsal tonight, and we're playing an hour set on Saturday at this bakery that's doing was it Rise Bakery. They have I think a new location that I forget if it's the one that's attached to Squibb Coffee in East Town or if it's on a different part of the city. But we're learning The Dream Voyager by Tigran.
Mm-hmm.
And that's at least an easier one. Easy in the sense that there's at least a consistent pulse, and then it gets crazier towards the end. But that to have people who suggest those things, and then everyone wants to learn them, is refreshing, because most times it's no, you're but it's a fun song. Let's learn it.
Right.
So
yeah, to have people on board with your crazy ideas is that's you need to have that kind of energy for a band to all be on the same page. Absolutely.
Yep. And that's kind of the process, there with radio. We're going into this next record. That's going to be, we're going to be tracking again at Third Coast Recording Company with our friend Kevin. And we also are going to have Paul Clemson join us. He is a live and studio engineer, and he's worked with Jill Scott, The Roots, Alicia Keys, just all these people. And he just happens to have a house in Niles, and was friends with, with Bill Chrysler, just from, he owns Third Coast Recording Company. And Bill toured for years with, John Mayer, and, when John would go do the Dead and Company stuff, and Maroon 5 and Christina Aguilera, just all, 40 years of sound work.
Yeah.
So that, with that in mind, we're like, we've been shedding this new album, and we pared down kind of the core band is the 4-piece, and we operate and write well together. And now we have some auxiliary players that we can bring in and out for different things. And this will probably be our most collaborative album in terms of like guest musicians too. So
very cool.
Yeah, it's nice to like, it feels like the whole last year and a half was like, okay, we're kind of navigating like what Normal Mode wants, what Earth Radio wants. Blushing Monk, I'm just like, someday we'll get back to doing something.
Blushing Monk, man. Yeah.
People gotta stop moving. Everyone's moving.
Right? Stop moving. Stay put.
Just get one more album, then you can move.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because I think like Caleb's in the Rainbow Seekers now, so he's been touring with them, and Ryan Deminick, who has been my go-to for the band. He is going to move with Madison to Nashville.
Oh, really?
Ethan Bausma's still around, and for how long I don't know, but I feel like he'll move to New York or Chicago or something.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of the nature of that project is ebb and flow with who's around and play to the strengths of who's on the record. But
totally.
Yeah. Is it so? I guess in terms of groups, is it just I don't want to say just the trio because that's a lot of investment, but are you gigging with like for the wedding stuff? Is it all just jazz related, or are you doing like pop gigs, cover gigs? I don't know, hip hop.
Well, last weekend I played with this band Hudson Horns, which is like a kind of, I guess, horn-centric band, at a wedding, which was cool. It was like a singer, and then another singer.
12
saxophone.
horns.
Yeah, several horns. No bass, right? It was like a sousaphone or tuba. I think sousaphone, right? I don't know the difference really. I think you put a sousaphone on your body. I don't know.
I think
a sousaphone or tuba, something like that.
Yeah, some brass person will say something
right.
about
You're
it.
Gonna get a very angry email. One of us will.
Actually, it's not.
But that was so no bass, and it was tuba, sousaphone. So that was cool, and I mean that was more like I guess I played some like jazz tunes before the ceremony, but then the set for the reception, the sets were very much like Temptations and Michael Jackson and whatever, like wedding reception songs. You know the book.
Yeah.
But then a lot of them are more just like jazz trio or quartet, and that's kind of just freelance, I guess, more just whoever's around, whoever hires me or I hire. And then but mostly a lot of it is pieces, the trio. It's actually we're playing with a quartet for our album release show, and then like I have my trio who I have a whole book of music written, and we were going to record it, but I don't have to say anymore. We were going to.
We were going to, and then the Fire Nation attacked.
Exactly. Zuko got Zuko'd.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got a whole book of music. I used to play with a regular gig bi-weekly, every other week. This plays Bar Next Door with a trio was Evan Hyde. Evan Hyde, you know Evan?
Yeah.
Right? The boy. Another Grand Rapids native. And Evan is like the crazy story because one of my first guitar teachers was his dad, Mike Hyde.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like taking lessons with Evan's dad for I think like a year. About a year when I was in high school. I was like 16, 17. And he taught me a lot, about harmony and in tunes and all that. And then I didn't even ever really know Evan. I think I met him in passing until we got to New York, and I was like, yo, I took guitar lessons with your dad. Well, okay, word. But yeah, he plays my band, and this guy Dan Montgomery, bass player. So we used to have a regular gig, or I guess I did, but this place Bar Next Door in Manhattan, in the West Village. So we got all this music together, and you know, I do definitely still want to record that. It's kind of my next endeavor I'm looking at. Saturday I'm playing a duo show with this drummer. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
You know, this tune Milky Pete.
Milky Pete. I don't know
It's
if
an
I've heard that one.
Ambrose Akamusori tune, or composition, I guess more.
Right.
It's wild. It's crazy, but we're gonna give it our best. Check that out. It's on his live album. Milky Pete.
Oh, okay. The live album.
It's one of those. So yeah, you know, kind of a couple different things. But yeah, I guess the thing I'm really looking forward to most right now is doing this album stuff. You know, releasing it, playing the shows. All that is like my main like creative endeavor, you know.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I feel like with, you know, you mentioned the recording process being difficult in the sense that, you know, you had to do things separate from the studio, and, you know, trying to find time for people. But I bet, well, maybe it wasn't, but I bet that because, you know, it's people you've literally just been playing with so often, it felt like, you know, more fun than trying to just like, it's like, oh, we didn't get the right tone, or we didn't get the right this. Oh, you messed up that. But like, it's just more like a hang and just fun.
Yeah, there was none of that. It was just a lot of screwing around and having fun in the studio. Yeah, because we all went in there and we rehearsed, like, again, we lived together and we're doing nothing. So we rehearsed like every day, I think, for the week before that. So we had all the music together. I think almost every song was like off paper. And yeah, it was fun. We just kind of hanging.
Yeah. I'm overdue for, well, Earth Radio's going to the studio like in 3 weeks, but
oh wow,
I guess,
it's coming up then.
Yeah, it's you know, it's crazy because like the single we put out in May, it felt like, you know, like just decades ago that we recorded it, because but it was, you know, we wrote, I think we wrote that tune. Well, Justin wrote the tune, and then Justin Abdeck, and then we you know, like, I think we spent three or four Tuesdays just demoing and refining it and sending it out. And, you know, it was me and Madison and Justin at Third Coast. And then the tracking process, you know, it felt like it flew by because we, you know, it was one song. So we knocked it out like most of the tracking that day. And yeah, this whole arc to like putting out this single and it kind of feeling like, you know, we did a special event for it, like at Third Coast, had it recorded. That some of those videos are going to come out later this year. But it's so funny to like to think of, you know, the perception of like a person who loves listening to music. They see a new thing and they're like, wow, this is awesome. And then like, you know, the artist might have had that in the can for 2 years, or it might have been, you know, they did it in a weekend and it was 6 months ago, or, you know, it's funny to see like the release journey of like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about this music for however many months or years, and and to like have it come out and just be like, all right, let's go. Can we tour? Can we still like all the things you want to do to celebrate new music? It's, you know, it's a weird time.
Yeah, it's kind of trippy, I guess. You know, if especially if it's been sitting on something for a while, like if you record something and then it's not till a year later it comes out, you know, you listen back to it, or like when you put it out in the world, it's kind of like you're publishing something now that, you know, was like a snapshot of yourself a year ago. You know, so it's kind of like messing with the time, you know, the timeline of like, yes, I'm putting this music out now, but I'm not the same person I was a year ago when I recorded it, right? Um, and I think like really honest music, you put yourself, who you are as a person and what you're doing now in that moment, and you record that, right? And then when it comes out a year later, it's you're different, but you're still like, this is my music, but also it's a year later now. I don't know. Sometimes I think about that. It's like kind of wild.
Yeah, it's wild, and it's like, because we've been talking within the Earth Radio crew about how we want to release it, and it's the like Ari Hernstan or like all these music industry, like not all gurus, but just people who like how to make it in the industry. All of their advice is like, you should always have like something that's ready to get published, that you're starting to like get the promotional train rolling 6 months out, and then in that interim you're also workshopping new tunes for the next record, but then you're also polishing up old tunes for the live show. And it's it's I feel like a lot of bands don't think about that consciously, but they do, at least that element of like, oh yeah, we got to keep up our old stuff because people have their favorites after however many years as a band, and then you have the new stuff that you're excited, it's polished from shedding it a bunch for recording, and then you have the draft phase stuff that you're like, all right, eventually we're gonna sit down and work on this, we don't know when yet, but
right. You're juggling all these things, old and new. It's a juggling act for sure. Just this.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure
it's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting.
Fun, right?
That's what I have to remember, and it's been a reminder this year that like, sometimes like, oh, bills are crazy. Try to find the balance of income and stuff, but you also want to have fun or something. Like I was talking with, I happened to have a conversation with like multiple people this month who were all asked me like, when I was listing here's everything I'm trying to do right now, and they're like, have you ever taken a vacation? And I'm like, no, I should probably take one.
You should probably do that.
It's like I've never just like planned, like I used to say like my vacation would just be like, if I could just stay in my, at my house and not have to go anywhere and just sleep in, like that's my vacation. But it's not, when you do that for a whole year last year and you're still feeling exhausted and like worn down, it's like, oh, it's because I haven't really taken a full break or a full step back or like, carved out time. It's just been like, oh, today was a vacation because I didn't do as much work.
Right. No, you definitely need to get around some mountains and beaches. I don't know what a vacation looks like for you.
Yeah,
aside from just sitting at home doing nothing. Yeah. You're like, that is my vacation.
Yeah, that's my. Well, and that's kind of that'll be the fun of the next few years. I've been thinking, because I'm turning 29 in 2 weeks, so I'm like, it's like, okay, 30, it's coming up, but mainly the mindset of like, okay, I need to get my 30s into a good spot, at least get myself set up for better trends. I've lost like I think like almost 45 pounds, and
oh wow, congrats,
I'm like,
man.
Yeah, I'm like, definitely like turning it, manifesting the
manifesting. There it is.
There's that word. Do I get $10 every time it's said?
Yes, from Quarantino's Pizza.
Yeah, they pull it out of the tip jar and they just mail it.
Hey, I'll do it.
Yeah,
I'll do it.
I'll say it all the time.
Fit into conversation.
Yeah.
$10.
Yeah. Anyway, I was just, I was walking by Quarantino's the other day. I had this thought about something totally unrelated, but, well, and just getting like trying to piece together like, okay, my version of being financially more stable, my version of, having more energy that's not just, piles of caffeine and um and in that process too, it's been nice to see like the because at first you're like, oh, will this actually help, or am I just like doing it because it's something, it's just something to do, or or whatever. It's nice to see like as the changes are happening, it's like, oh, I do see benefits. I committed to doing a float session once a month.
What is this? What is it?
It's like the sensory deprivation tank.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. How
And
was that?
that's it's surprisingly like, I my first one was in like October of last year, and I was like kind of skeptical because I try to do meditation, but it's like, okay, 10 minutes, and then if I don't stay present in that mindset, it immediately goes to like, this congressman said what, and just screaming at my phone. But I like it because it it forced me to have an hour and and some change to just literally just do nothing but focus on breathing and like relaxing, because it's the tank isn't, the water isn't super full. It like comes up just under my knee, and when you lay down, it's salinated, so you're floating, and but it's not, so whatever combination of the how salinated the water is, and it's not completely just drying you out, whatever version of liquid that is, whatever water.
Of water, yeah.
Yeah. And it every time I do it, it feels like muscles and bones and joints are all kind of like relaxing and adjusting and getting into a better feeling. And I always exit, especially since you get out and then you immediately just take a hot shower. It's like you feel like
that feels good.
Yeah, I always feel like I got like a full night's sleep in like that session. And it keeps me coming back, as well as I just started, I have a friend who's a massage therapist, and she kind of helped me like figure out, well, not figure it out, I just have to lay there, but just going to massage appointments and being like, oh yeah, this is super helpful. Like just ignoring all the strains of gear carrying and sleeping on weird places, and now it's like, oh, I get all that tension just needed out of me.
Man, I need a massage so bad. That sounds great.
I highly recommend it.
You've convinced me. That's it. Say no more.
Yeah, well, and I think it's going to be baked into. There's a week in the fall where Earth Radio just has a week that's a break, and I'm thinking of just for a vacation, like find a couple nights at a an Airbnb, specifically if I could get an Airbnb in the woods with a hot tub, just away from people, with the option to just go in a hot tub, and then have it be near a spa that isn't a place I've already played. Like I don't want to go to any of the wedding venues I've played before, because
right.
you're like, oh, this place.
You get to see ghosts.
Yeah.
Ghosts of your past self.
Yeah, just me. Oh, I'm at Bay Harbor, and I'm walking into the wrong building because that place is gigantic and they don't specify it in the details. But
if you get out of town, man.
Yeah, that's kind of the it's my intro to vacationing. Like, what if I just got just spoiled with massages and pampering, and then like go chill in a place in the woods for.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, sign me up.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I seek out artist retreats. Like I still, I assume at some point I'll get into one just because I haven't really applied for them, but I want to make an effort to do that to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like what do I learn spending a month at a cabin in, I don't know, Alaska or something? like
Right.
like what will
Oh,
that
that sounds
do?
great too. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think being able to get away like that, I think just getting away is really important, because you can get caught up. By the way, I have Dizzy here, my cat. I'm
Yeah,
sure you've seen him.
I saw the tail and oh, now I see the eyes.
He wants some attention. But I think getting away is so important, just for everything. Like, it breaks you out of these cycles, and sometimes, like all these things you're saying, sometimes you feel exhausted for no reason. Like, I shouldn't, but it's
Mhm.
just like fatigue. It's like fatigue of the routine. Uh, and that's just why, getting out of town is so important. And after a year of being at home, like you said, everybody should be more rested than ever. Everybody's more exhausted than ever because it's just like it's like anything. You own the studio for too long, and then you start to dislike whatever you're playing, right?
Mhm.
It's like ear fatigue. Look at
Yep.
your computer screen for too long, eye fatigue. Same thing. It's just like life fatigue.
Yeah. Have
So
you been able
go
to
out to that spa.
yeah, have you been able to like get out of Brooklyn and like I don't know, go hiking or go somewhere and just like turn off the phone for a couple days?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I've been up, sometimes go upstate, which is really beautiful. A lot of nature. Um, went to Colorado a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
even just going back to like Michigan or something feels like feels like a vacation. Um, Anywhere not in New York feels like a vacation, really.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, there's more trees and less houses. All right, I'm out of the
Yes,
city.
yes, yes. Trees, air, good.
All good. Yeah, I see photos of, you know, different parts of New York and I, you know, there's places obviously like, Central Park that just has a million billion trees, but
Hmm.
I feel like that park is also kind of an example of like people who think like, oh, we got that, like that's nature, we got enough of that, got a whole park.
Right.
It's like, yeah, but most houses don't have anything, like maybe in potted flowers, but
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I was thinking that when you were talking about gardening earlier. It's like I wish I could do that, but I don't have a backyard or any means to garden. People have little gardens on their fire escapes.
oh, nice.
That's the garden zone. But yeah, it's a lot of people here. And I mean there are parks though. There's a lot of parks around. You get Central Park or Prospect Park, which is like the Central Park of Brooklyn.
Mm.
Um, and then there are just parks around in general, but in between the parks there's like a million people each one.
Yeah. Have you because I've noticed with, there's people all have their fierce defenses of like different segments of, like it's like the Bronx and New York and, and Harlem, and everyone's just like they let you know like this is what Harlem, like this is what. Have you found those like things that you're like, nah man, this is Brooklyn? Or
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I don't. I've only been here for like f almost 4 years, which is like, it's kind of a long time, but I don't know if I can claim allegiance to Bushwick. Bushwick, ride or die.
yeah.
But I mean, I guess like I will defend some areas if somebody's like, "Oh no, I don't go to this place." And if I've been there, it's like, "No, it's actually really nice. Like you should." He's from beaches or something. But no, I like all the different boroughs and except Staten Island. We don't talk about Staten Island.
Yeah,
Um,
they seem to be their own beast of well, beasts of a lot of things, I guess.
for a long time, I didn't even think it was real. I thought it was like kind of like an Area 51 type place. 'Cause I had never been there. Nobody I'd known had been there. But it turns out nobody goes there just because it's kind of full of assholes. So it's a
Yeah,
real place.
it's a real. I mean, hearing Pete Davidson stand up, and he's just he's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I would
right.
not lose sleep if everyone in Staten Island died. And you're like, oh, tell us how you really feel. Like,
Right, right, right. The king of Staten Island.
yeah, yeah, he's the king. Um, but yeah, it's I I think of like also with cities like Grand Rapids that there's development, there's people talking about like, oh, we need to have as the city starts to you know more diversity and more inclusion and more things, when other places like New York have always had this vibrant culture, intersection of cultures. And I bet that is cool to see coming from Michigan, where sometimes it can, things can be a little homogenized, and you're in kind of the same, the same tract. But maybe I'm just being altruistic about a place I've never been to.
Yeah, you gotta come to New York, man.
Yeah.
Seriously. But no, it's so diverse, and everywhere you go, there's a different culture and different, best kind of food. It's kind of like no matter what neighborhood you go to, like it has its thing. You go to Sunset Park, and Mexican food there is incredible. You go to Bed-Stuy or Flatbush, and then it's like Caribbean. Um, and yeah, it's so diverse. And yeah, man, I mean, I don't think that's ever going to change. There's always going to be so much diversity here in New York. At least I hope so.
Yeah. It'd be weird if, yeah, if it was just, if New York just turned into like, I don't know, like certain parts of West Michigan. You're just like, really? Is everyone just here to own a boat and like eat at the
Yeah, that's
same
never going
five
to happen.
restaurants?
That'll never happen. I can say that with confidence.
Yeah. 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 It's, well, and, I still keep up with, I mean, it's hard not to with, New York being a music hub, like just the diversity of just players and like the flexibility some people have to just, because I've always been a person who's like, I'll sink into, like, oh, I'm playing a lot of classical rep. And then I'll be like, nah, I got to play something else. And then I'll, find a
Hmm.
band or do other types of gigs. Um, so to see like, all these musicians who they they find this community, and then it builds around them, and it like encourages almost this diversity of like, no, why can't you also be a producer and a performer, or why can't you also
Right.
make beats and shred on an acoustic instrument? Like
Hmm.
there's a lot of, it feels like there's a lot of like diversity in how you can and not just because the music industry, you kind of have to have a bunch of hats, but it's cool looking at the New York scene and being like, oh, I didn't know those two guys knew each other and they're playing together at this place. Oh, and it's streamed, I'm gonna check that out. Like,
Right.
or for you, like, oh, it's down the block. Or
Yeah, yeah, really. Yeah, it's like there are so many people and musicians here. It's just like so many. Um, that like it's kind of like you need to find your niche. Just because I mean, in Michigan, like you said, you can play all kinds of gigs, a different genre every weekend. Um, but here there's just so many people, like I said, that it's really helpful to find your niche and like play. Okay, this is exactly what I'm gonna do. But then, like you're talking about, it seems like once you found it, then it's like the opposite. Like, oh, okay, well, now I'm gonna do this too, and it's just kind of like disproving, because that's what everybody told me when I was moving to New York. They're like, okay, you have to find your niche. You know exactly what you want to do. You can't play all different 6 different genres of music like you did in Michigan. Um, but now I'm kind of thinking that's not true. Like you're saying, because if you look at everybody, everybody's playing all these different kinds of projects and different people.
yeah,
Variety is the spice of life, as they say. It's like you got to keep it like that.
yeah, it's definitely like I know my friend James Cannerl, he lives in I think he used to live in Brooklyn. He might still live near there. He's a killer metal drummer. Went to Berkeley, and
Oh, cool.
he kind of figured out early on, like, he was doing, a lot of people's pandemic pet projects were like, oh, I'm going to buy mics. I'm going to, have a live studio / live stream setup.
Mm-hmm.
Like Desmond Jones around here, they did that. They invested some recovery grants and other things into
Yeah.
equipment. And but he like I feel like as early as 2012 had like, oh, the drum kit mic'd with the aesthetic, whatever the studio aesthetic was, multiple camera angles, and he was just making a habit out of like, anytime I record like for a client, I'm also recording video. I can clip that out, or I
Mm-hmm.
can save it for something else. um and he's gotten work through that, and it's cool to see like his specific niche of like, he's a metal drummer, but he also taught, like, other than just drum lessons, playing uh with a gospel church, and like doing the cruise thing for a few months. And um yeah, it's like you'd think a metal dude
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have some of the the color or the finesse to do some of those gigs, but um yeah, he likes doing and he's endorsed by Sunhouse, so he has the
Oh, cool.
electronic
I love
component stuff
Sunhouse.
too. Yeah, I don't know if they
That was so
make.
cool.
I've been wanting some of their gear, but I don't really know. I haven't looked too deeply to be like, is there something cool for keyboards, or is it all
I have no
percussion?
idea. I've only ever seen the drum clip things, that the MIDI controllers or whatever. I don't know what
Hmm.
they are. Whatever they are.
Yeah, the little, I don't know if I guess a trigger, middle MIDI
Yeah, like a
trigger.
little trigger. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yes. Yeah, that's a whole other world of, I think of bands like Hiatus Coyote just put out that Tiny Desk,
Mm.
and the attention to detail, like building the set in like segmented color strips, and then like having things that fit. It looked like an I Spy game, because you're like,
Huh.
you've got like, oh, it's blue, but then you notice, oh, there's an inflatable shark on the wall, and it matches the lighting and the color. But I didn't
Wow, I
notice
haven't
that
seen it
because
yet.
yeah, it's a great example of like, you know how they make, I guess, how they make the music on their albums like work live. um Partly because the keyboard player brings like six different keyboards, but it's it's a lot
Wow.
of sounds. He had like, like three stacked, and then like another one or two on his main board, and then like a Mellotron digital thing off to the side, and an upright piano, I think, unless that was a MIDI controller. But
Jeez.
it
Wow.
was it was a lot.
That's some commitment to take that much gear.
Yeah, and some of them he's like, oh, this one part, bwang, 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 bwang. All right, if different patch doesn't use it for 5 minutes.
Right. That's it. Like
Yeah,
it's like bringing your cymbal, bringing the China cymbal for one hit. Like, all right, pack it up.
yeah. Well, it reminded me too of like the presentation of art. It's one thing Earth Radio's trying to get better at, is how visually do we look, in a way that complements the music. Uh, but it's also like, I think of that, the residency you were doing. Was that the bar? That was the bar that like, you guys like behind a bar counter, like elevated, or I
Kind of look like it, but I think you're talking about the same place. Yeah, it's kind of like a
yeah.
dimly lit room.
Hmm.
Um, it's like it's called the bar next door. Yeah, and yeah, kind of a dimly lit room. The bar is actually over to the right of the
Hmm.
stage, and then all the tables are right around the front. So those are probably tables that you saw.
Okay.
Um, yeah, missed that place. I don't think they're doing music anymore.
Ah, man,
Sadly, I know.
that's the that's it's always the places, like, I heard the Blue Whale closed too, and I was like, It's like it's always the places that like you want to stay open won't stay open, and all these like trash places are still open.
God, there's it's like God, you're still, you know, you get email like, God, how are you still here? Yeah, I'll play.
Yeah.
I'm not happy about it, but
Yeah, well, and I've, you know, with Earth Radio, it's nice to have. We're at a point where we're like, okay, we need to book places that serve what we do. We need, you know, we can't be expected to run our own sound unless we work into a budget to hire a front of house person.
right.
And you know, having the venues that are like, oh, we're gonna have, you know, good sound, lighting, even if it's not, you know, the biggest spot, like, you know, finding the people we want to work with. That's kind of helped parse through some of the like the venues that are just, you know, like we don't really care, like whatever you want for tickets, we get half. You're like, okay, like trying to, you know, invest in the thing, and doesn't sound like you're reciprocating, but
I like how you guys do that. I saw, you know, maybe a month ago or something, you played at, I guess, Rake Beer in Muskegon,
oh yeah.
and like you had your own beer with them. That's so cool, man. I was like, fuck, that's cool.
Yeah, they've been Josh Rake, who owns the business. He, you know, he's known Justin for a long time because, you know, both being from Muskegon, and you know, they've only been open like, I think they might be going into their third year soon, and it, you know, it feels like they really made an effort to endear themselves to like the artistic community, having a weekly music series, but also a weekly yoga series that
Mm,
Justin's brother-in-law, Dan Bonner, he'll do pre-show yoga for like an hour, and
very
then
cool.
usually the artists that are playing in the concert, they can get a little extra money by like improvising tunes to fit the vibe of the session.
Mm, love
So
it.
yeah, it's like I'm totally up for those kind of spaces where it's like, all right, we made the band, you know, like $600 or, you know, 500 or whatever that was, but we only had, you know, we played one set. It was people who wanted to be there. You know, it's in a chill setting.
Right.
Um, you know, great drinks, great, you know, food in the surrounding the rest of that building.
Mm-hmm.
And they've just started doing a ghost kitchen too. So they're starting to
Okay.
expand like what they're able to offer. Um, yeah, I'm sure there's like, you know, I so many venues in New York are like these fabled like, it's like, man, if you were only here in the 70s, or like you could feel the history in the
Oh yeah, there are lots of those places, you know, Village Vanguard and Smalls and I guess not Smalls, but like Village Vanguard, yeah, and oh yeah, there's so many legendary venues. But
yeah.
I, I'm gonna go to Rake Beer. You know, I'll be in Michigan in October. If
Oh,
they're open,
nice.
man, I'll try to stop up there. It's not that far from Grand Rapids, you know.
Yeah, and you know, we've been doing once a month, and
Maybe I'll catch it.
usually we've been lucky to like, I think last year our last show was October, so I think that'll be par for the course this year because it's, you know, the capacity indoors is, you know, not that big, and then the patio, the reserved seats, I mean, it's all
Mm-hmm.
tables, but you know, the ticket cap is also not crazy high, so it's like, you know, we can
Right.
get 60 people, 70 people just chilling in a outdoor space.
Man, I
um
hope that works out. That would be perfect. If you could check you guys out.
yeah, have
But
you
we'll see.
jump in and shred a solo.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'll have all my stuff.
Yeah, Joe Vasquez is actually in town right now.
I know.
um
Yeah.
we're we want to link up with him. I don't know if anyone shot him a text today, but we were talking about it yesterday of like if he wants to come hang at Rake Beer and, you know,
Are you
shred
guys
some
playing
bass.
there this weekend or something?
Yeah, we've been doing
Oh wow, there you
once a month on Thursdays, and
go. Hmm.
Thursdays is the series. So
Mm-hmm.
which is perfect because then we leaves Friday, Saturday open for other stuff.
Right, yeah, he'd be down, old Joe. That's my dude. We play Pokemon together.
Oh, nice! Like the card game or the video game?
No. Lately, playing some Pokemon on the Switch, Pokemon Unite.
Oh,
it's pretty fun, man. I don't know if you've checked that out, but it's pretty good.
I kind of want to check. I've seen clips, but I haven't checked it out. But I've had Pokemon on the brain since I think last summer, just because of the Pokemon card boom and everything going crazy with that. And then I have this idea that I think I can execute, but it would take a long time to get from start to finish. But I want to pick, you think of like each generation of Pokemon, there's like the first two that come out, and then there's the deluxe version, like, Yellow and Crystal and Emerald. And there's a way with this clone console I have, the Retron 5, that you can create, save states like you would on a Game Boy, but you save them to an SD card. And that gives you the potential to like import it into an emulator. So my thought was figuring out like, okay, how can I stream every version of Pokemon? Like I have a Switch, I have this Retron 5 that outputs to HDMI, and I can play, different cartridges. DS is, they have like $150 mod kits, but you have to do them yourself. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to mod like maybe if I get like a $20 DS, I could mod it, but
yeah, really,
that's it's a lot of effort. But the idea would be, go back to Pokemon Yellow, start with like the OG, like the nostalgia, like, I got Pikachu, Blastoise, Charizard, all the dudes from the show. And then as I play through each game, streaming it in the process, I import the team from Yellow into the next generation, and then beat the game with whatever new set of Pokemon, and then have them also challenge the Elite Four, and then just keep trading it up and up and up. Because once you get to like 3DS, you get to the Pokemon Home program, which it's like, okay, now I can store it in the cloud and import it into any 3DS or Switch Pokemon game. And I've seen it at least like people who have modded 3DSs, because you can buy the games digitally, and then those are way easier to import and export. But I think with my goal, I have to figure out how to get stuff into emulators and then reverse that back, like somehow getting an emulated version, a save file, back into an original hardware game. Right. So it's a journey, but
that'll be a journey, man. But it sounds pretty cool. Pretty cool project.
Yeah, something I realized, last year I was like, I don't really have a lot of like I have interests and things I want to make into hobbies that I just don't put time into. So that was part of last year, was remembering what hobbies are that aren't, necessarily like, I'm going to do this so that I can make this and then start this and then do, make money off it in 5 years, maybe.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm sure your cat keeps you plenty busy at home.
He does. He requires a lot of attention. Not that much. He likes to be left alone a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's better than, I have 3 dogs at my parents' house, but I can't have pets here. But they're all dachshund mixes, so they're running and jumping all over furniture and bringing toys and just looking at you and barking like, why haven't you thrown it yet? Do it again. But yeah, I'm glad that you've been able to at least have something to focus on and stay afloat over the the quarantine and all the craziness.
Definitely. It's been great, to have something, to look forward to and to work on, and we're playing like some original tunes, all of our original tunes, and it's just been great to have something to work toward and to learn through it too. Learning a lot about recording and all the post-recording stuff, like publicity, promotion, playlisting, all that stuff. So it's been really cool, and I'm really happy that it's happening. Looking forward to releasing this thing too.
Yeah, definitely. What should people who want to find you performing, or where should they find you online? Like all those good things.
Yeah, all that. I post on Instagram pretty regularly. J.A. Clark, or I have a website, olinclark.com. My new project is Pieces Band, which is theband.com for our website. But we're on Spotify and all Apple Music, all those type of places to listen to music. And the album's coming out September 17th. One day.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. And I get to review it, so I'll hear it shortly. Yeah, but I've at least heard stuff from snippets from the clips, and I'm like, oh, I know when I'll have time to work on this. So,
ooh, yeah, looking forward to show what you think about it.
Awesome.
All right, Dasher. Yeah, thanks so much, man. It's great to talk to you.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
All right, man. Take care.
All right. See ya. Thanks again to Olin Clark for sitting down and chatting. So much fun. So great to catch up with Michigan musicians that have taken the things they've learned and moved out into the world and, showed a lot of people around the East Coast scene what Michigan's got. We got some great players going out there, going out through the West Coast, going to Chicago, and great players still in the state of Michigan. You don't have to look too hard to find some really great players and really great people. So glad y'all could hear our chat, and go check out his album with his band Pieces on September 17th. And we'll catch you in next week's episode of Mitten Backstage. Take care.